There are some events that just can't be unseen, some faces you can't forget. There are tales we must tell. You see, sometimes life has a way of delivering justice. It doesn't always come in the form you'd expect, but nonetheless, it comes. So let's get started. Shila's rage burned brighter than fire. She ran into the night, away from her people, away from the lies. But the jungle was no friend. Every tree whispered danger, every shadow hid death. Her bare feet barely touched the ground, but she didn't care. Her spear flew through the darkness, finding purchase on the sturdy vines that tried to ensnare her. But there was no escape from the growling that echoed around her. Wolves. Two glowing eyes pierced the gloom, then another pair and another, a whole pack surrounding her, far-bearing teeth showing claws. A low growl rumbled in Shila's chest, answering theirs. She wouldn't go down without a fight. A large wolf lunged forward, jaws wide, and Shila danced aside, letting its momentum take it past her. She spun around, spearing out, her weapon sinking deep into the wolf's shoulder. The creature yelped, shaking its head violently. It slashed out, catching Shila off guard and raking her arm with its claws. Blood welled up, but it only made her angrier. She kicked out, catching the wolf square in the face. Then, gathering her strength, she pulled her spear free, rushed forward, and plunged it into the creature's chest. The wolf stared at her for a moment, its eyes clouding over before collapsing. But Shila's victory was short-lived. Panting, she slid down the tree, her wounds burning, and as the rest of the pack closed in, she braced for the end. A shout rang out from above. "Hold!" A party of hunters clung to the lianas above, spears poised. Shila raised her head just in time to see ropes drop down and bind her arms behind her. They carried Shila away wounded from the jungle. Back in tribe's camp in the cave, the council of elders had gathered, headed by the chief. The chief sat tall, his expression grim, his gaze intense. The fire crackled beside him, casting flickering shadows on the cave walls, dancing macabre jig with the shapes of the assembled men. "A rook meets his destiny," the chief stated, his voice like stones grinding together. "But Shila and Adric have betrayed us. Tomorrow we'll hunt harder, stronger. And," the chief thumped his chest looking at the tribesmen, "I will lead the hunt myself." The men murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement, others glancing nervously at the cavern mouth as if expecting the very ground to swallow them. One of the men, Jarko the elder, frowned, his gaze fixed on the flames. He didn't speak, but his silence thundered with unspoken questions. The chief ignored him, rising to his feet. "That is all." He swept his gaze over the assembled men, his eyes burning into theirs. "Let us feast." They fell silent, watching him, waiting. But no celebration echoed that night. The memory of the fallen hunter, the fear of the approaching winter, and the doubt cast by the chief's own words hung heavy in the air. Deeper in the jungle, in a vast cave adorned with dozens of fires, drums echoed, painting primal rhythms on the cave walls. Around a dozen warriors sat in a circle before a majestic woman. Her crown of peacock feathers seemed to catch the light of every fire, making her eyes sparkle like jewels. Her chest was strong with female curves decorated with shells and bone ornaments. Her muscles rippled beneath her toned skin, and a necklace of fangs and bones circled her neck. This was Bryndis, the female chief of the tribe. Powerful and beautiful, she exuded an aura that demanded respect. As Shila was pushed before her, the hall fell silent. All eyes were on her, assessing, judging. She was bruised, bloodied, but unbroken. She stood tall, meeting their gazes with defiance. Despite her wounds, there was a fire in her eyes, a wild spirit that refused to be tamed. "So this is the girl who bested our hunters," a voice boomed from the back. It was a warrior, tall and muscular, his face scarred, his eyes narrowed. Bryndis raised a hand, silencing him. "Welcome, Shila," she said, her voice echoing with power. "We heard tales of your courage, your skill with the spear. It is an honor to have you here." The crowd cheered, but Shila remained impassive. She knew this was just the calm before the storm. Bryndis, the female chief, continued, "Strength and unity are the cornerstones of our tribe. Even our captives are treated with honor, for in their resilience we see a reflection of ourselves. Shila, what is your will?" Shila looked around at the expectant faces, at the raw strength that surrounded her. In this place, might was not just respected, it was revered. The scars on the men, the confident stance of the women, the fierce glint in their eyes, they were all a testament to the values of this tribe. A tribe where survival meant thriving, where weakness was not tolerated, and where respect was earned through strength. She realized she was being watched intently, the weight of their gazes pressing down on her. Their chief had challenged her. It was a test, an invitation to join their ranks, and as she met Bryndis's gaze, she knew she had no choice but to accept. "I am Shila," she echoed, her voice ringing with newfound resolve, "and I stand before you, ready to prove my strength." The crowd erupted in cheers, pounding their feet on the ground, sending vibrations that echoed through the cave. But Shila was not celebrating. She was dragged away, taken deeper into the cave. What awaited her? Prison, or something far more dangerous? The next morning, the sun was a blazing eye in the sky, promising a day of relentless heat. The jungle was a furnace, the air thick and heavy, the sounds of insects a constant drone. The chief, clad in the finest leathers, his spear held high, led his hunters deep into the suffocating heart of the jungle. They were looking for the biggest bison, the largest prey the jungle could offer. As they pushed on, tension mounted. The men glanced nervously at their chief, their faces etched with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. For the hunt today was not just about food or glory, it was about proving themselves worthy of their chief's trust. After hours of tracking, they found it. A massive bison wallowing by a stream, its horns like scimitars, its eyes filled with ancient wisdom. The sight sent a thrill through the hunters. The chief, his face grim, raised his spear. "This is our challenge," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "Bring it down and claim your prize." With a war cry they charged. The bison snorted, charging forward, scattering the hunters. The chief, however, was undeterred. He gripped the animal's horns, bracing for the charge. But the moment the bison lurched forward, it wasn't the ground that rose to meet him, but the chief himself. He was hurled through the air, his scream echoing the bison's bellow. He crashed onto a bed of rocks, his breath hitching. The hunters, their faces ashen, rushed to their chief's side. But their shouts of "He's alive" were cut short by the sight of blood staining the ground. Their chief lying broken, his voice stolen by pain. The bison, mortally wounded, collapsed beside him. The hunters, their expressions a mix of triumph and horror, quickly dispatched the beast. They had won the hunt, but their victory was tainted by the sight of their chief lying broken before them. As the chief lay gasping on the forest floor, the hunters looked at each other, their faces pale in the dappled sunlight. What were they going to do? The chief was hurt, possibly dying. To leave him here would be a death sentence, but carrying him back was no easy task. They needed to act fast. And as the scene fades, we hear the final tease. What happens to a tribe when it loses its chief? Will they abandon him or carry him back? And far away in another cave, Shila's eyes burned with a new fire. The story of exile was no longer about one man. It was about the fate of tribes themselves. Will Shila find her strength in time? Will the hunters choose duty or fear? What does Aruk gain in his exile? And what is Shila actually meant for to Bryndis? If you love it, find out in the next episode. Thanks for watching.